Welcome to the Gravity Well podcast with me, Jenny Yeremy. I host the Gravity Well to celebrate and share the stories of people looking to empower others with the knowledge and skills required to reestablish stability in our communities. My mission is to work through heavy issues in conversation and process in order to lighten the load. I acknowledge that I live on the traditional territories of Treaty 7 and Métis Districts 5 and 6. The treaties and self-governance agreements established by Indigenous peoples were created to honor the laws of the land, maintain balance with nature, and give back to uphold reciprocal relationships. This knowledge and intention are what guide the Gravity Well conversations. I ask for genuine dialogue, real hearts, and openness to different perspectives. This is your invitation to find common ground with me. Positions taken by participants, either individually or collectively, do not necessarily represent those of the Gravity Well. This podcast is dedicated to the natural world, our children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and all future generations. The Gravity Well is on YouTube and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe. Okay, welcome to the studio. Today I have Andrew Gage and Sadie Vipond. I'm very excited to speak to them both. It is Earth Day, and we are going to update everyone on the LaRose versus Her Majesty the Queen, now His Majesty the King, and who's all involved in the case and the status of it. So thank you so much for being here. I have Andrew Gage, who is a staff lawyer with West Coast Environmental Law, and Sadie Vipond, who is a plaintiff in the case and also a university student. Welcome. Let's start with you, Sadie. You're first on my screen. Please introduce yourself properly and help everyone understand how you got involved or your background in this case, please. Thank you.
My name is Sadie Vipond. I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta, but I've moved to Vancouver, BC for school. I'm studying environmental science with a specialization in ecology and conservation at the University of British Columbia. And I have been involved in this case for, I want to say 7 years. So it's been a long time in this case, and it's been very valuable for me. It's been with me as I've been growing up and learning more about the case, learning more, just being impacted by the effects of climate change, and then growing up and learning more about it in an academic perspective at university right now. So it's been a journey.
Wow, 7 years. And you're a student now, so I can imagine you were a young student at the time. In junior high, perhaps, or high school, or?
Yeah. I started out in grade 7, grade 8.
Wow. And I have the privilege of meeting and working with your dad often as well. Sadie, thank you so much for both of your work. It's so great for me to hear that you're working in the world of ecology. Thank you for dedicating your life to that. Andrew, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
I'm a staff lawyer at an environmental organization called West Coast Environmental Law. I've been here for a long time, but working for the last decade or so primarily on climate change. But that being said, we're actually fairly new. We haven't been around for the 7 years that Sadie has for the LaRose case. We were asked a year and a bit back when David Suzuki Foundation, which had been working with the youth and on this case, decided they needed to take a step back, whether we would play the role of providing both communications and fundraising support, but also assisting with the development of the legal case. We're not the lead lawyers on the case. It's a law firm called R.V. Finley, but we're very proud to be supporting Sadie and the other plaintiffs as this case moves forward.
Wow, incredible. It's running so long that we have a handoff happening in the meantime. Thank you so much for stepping up to the plate to support this. Can you say the name of the group that is the lead on it again, please? I'm not sure if I caught it.
The law firm that is the lead lawyer, representing the youth in court is R.V. Finley, Finlay. Law firm with a long-standing tradition of raising constitutional issues and winning under unlikely circumstances. So they're a perfect fit for this case.
Wonderful. And of course, there are some other students supporting this case as well. I'm excited to speak with them in the future once this moves along. So let's help people know about the case, please. Let's start with what is the case? So the case, I understand it to be LaRose versus Her Majesty the Queen. Like I say now, His Majesty the King. There's been a handoff there in terms of royalty. So what did it aim to achieve? What was the goal of the case? Let's start there. And Andrew, if you wouldn't mind framing from a law perspective first, please. Thanks.
Sure. I mean, I think Sadie would probably have lots to say about this as well. But I mean, essentially, climate change is more and more affecting the basic safety of the day-to-day life of Canadians, often in ways we don't even connect to climate change in our heads, but certainly with the dramatic wildfires and evacuations, floods, heat waves, etc. I mean, there are many Canadians who have suffered, in some cases, as much as deaths from climate change. We have a government that has, pledged to do its part on climate change, but consistently sets targets that are not nearly what science says is required, which ultimately, they're not even going to achieve if they continue down the path that they're on. And that is putting Canadians, and especially youth, at risk. So the argument is essentially that, although Canada has this, the Canada Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, that this legislation falls short of the constitutional obligation that Canada has to do its part to protect the rights of youth like Sadie, and particularly Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. And, Sadie and the other plaintiffs and their legal team have been sort of saying that's not happening here. We need to do more as a country to be able to hold up our heads and say we're actually doing what it takes to protect these youth and to protect all Canadians. So really, they're bringing the case on behalf of all of us.
I have been impacted by climate change, so have all of my fellow plaintiffs. It's all been like fires and heat and extreme weather events and flooding and like medical conditions that are exacerbated by the effects of climate change. So we've all been experiencing the effects of climate change even before we started this case. And that's kind of why we joined it, is because I think a lot of people see climate change as this future issue, but the reality is it's impacting us right now. And throughout the case, we try to mark down all the climate impacts that we've been experiencing. And it's just been piling up. And I've just been seeing it in my relatively short timeline. I have seen the effects get worse. And so it's really not just about the physical effects of climate change. It's also the mental impacts and the stress and the fear and the uncertainty that comes around the climate crisis. Because we are growing up, our future looks so uncertain because we're not exactly sure if there will be 1.5 degrees of warming or 4 degrees of warming. There's just such a big range and such a variety of different impacts that humans have caused and past generations as well to impact our future. And so as youth, we can't really control the political climate. We can't vote at all. And so I don't think any of us were above 18 at the time of the start of the case, so we couldn't vote. So this legal action seemed like a good way to share our voices and try and fight for our rights in a way, because youth cannot be involved in decision making, but we're going to be the most impacted down the line. So yeah, as Andrew said, we're just asking for a climate-based climate recovery plan to hold the government accountable for the action that they are not doing that's infringing on our charter rights. And we're also not asking for any compensation whatsoever. We just want our future to be safe and for the government to be held accountable. And so I care really deeply about what this case is asking for, because it is based in science and not just a political step that a lot of climate action by the governments have been so far.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's, as you say, not only do we have a ton of uncertainty ahead of us, but it's growing uncertainty.
when the less action we do. And what you're asking for is action. You're asking for a plan. You're asking for action from the government. You're not asking for money. So I think it's really important that people underscore that point, that this is not when people say, oh, who's after the money or follow the money, etc. This is a follow the action plan, please. So yeah, thank you so much for taking that step, for using that power, knowing that you had it. And I'm really excited to see what comes next. So let's talk about that. What stage are we at? What's coming next?
I think I will know a little bit less details than Andrew, but right now we are preparing to go to court. We're going in October, and it's really exciting because when I was in grade 8, so that would have been like 6 years ago, our case was struck down by the courts, and then we had to go to the Court of Appeals, and then they acknowledged our right to go to court with this case. So it's been like that slowed us down a lot. So now we're going back on it, and we're back on the path of going to court and fighting for our rights in that way. So that's really exciting because there was a lot of uncertainty when we were at the Court of Appeals, like if it would even go forward then. But I'm just really excited for this upcoming opportunity to go to court and to share our story with the country leading up to that point as well.
Wow, yeah, I'm excited for this. Andrew, would you mind also explaining a bit of the history like Sadie touched on as well, and then where we're going, or what stage we're at, I mean? Thank you.
Sure. I mean, when this case was filed, it was actually a very ambitious, and I mean, it still is ambitious, but a very sweeping condemnation of sort of the many, many ways in which the Canadian government contributes to climate change and doesn't do enough to address those impacts. The original court hearing heard a motion by Canada saying that that's just too broad, it's too political, it raises all these complicated issues. And the original trial judge agreed with that, and that's where Sadie was talking about the court case being struck out and that they would be allowed to proceed. The Federal Court of Appeal disagreed. There were some things that they agreed with the judge on, and that those aspects of the case aren't going forward. But the key questions of can you challenge government decisions for violating Section 7 of the Charter, the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, the Federal Court of Appeal said, maybe this was too broad, but the youth should be allowed to amend their pleadings and be more specific about which specific laws are being challenged, and this should go ahead. And that's actually, in its own right, a huge win and a huge precedent that I think sets the stage for all kinds of other cases, and is one of the cases where the courts are increasingly recognizing that climate change isn't just a political choice, but does affect the human rights of Canadians. So Sadie and the other youth should be very proud already of having established this precedent. The legal team then went away, had conversations with the plaintiffs, and looked at how to focus the case, and they changed their pleadings. So they amended the statement of what this case is based on to really focus on the inadequacy of Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, because that's the key piece of environmental legislation that Canada says is to deal with the climate crisis, as well as to point out that even if that even aside from that Canada actually has a positive obligation to protect the rights of these youth. And they negotiated, they talked to Canada, and Canada said, yes, if that's what you're arguing, we won't try to strike this case for a second time. And so, yeah, it's now set down for hearing in October. We've just had both sides exchange reports from their experts, the experts that they've lined up to speak about the complicated issues that are in play here. And we're busy reviewing the reports we received from Canada, and they're busy reviewing the reports that our experts have given to them. There'll be some back and forth over the summer, and like the youth, Sadie and the other plaintiffs are going to be putting forward statements about what they're going to be saying at trial, or affidavits, sort of telling the story of their individual experiences of climate change and how this has affected them. And ultimately, all of this is going to be going before the judge in October, and we'll see where it goes from there. We're very optimistic, though, that the courts are going, the courts, I think more and more, not just in Canada, but around the world, are showing that they are open to dealing with sort of the magnitude of the problem, and saying, when climate change has these types of impacts on people, we can't just turn our backs to this. These are legal issues, and so we're optimistic.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So since, I'm picturing over this, 7-year period of time, what's happened, the ICJ, so the International Court of Justice, has ruled that climate law, natural law are international law. So there's another, I'm curious, Andrew, does that support this case, or does it come into play at all? Or
It
how does
absolutely supports this case. The International Court of Justice and several other international courts have confirmed that climate change is a human rights issue, have articulated what the obligations of state governments are to deal with climate change, and we will absolutely be referring to those decisions in trying to put before the Canadian courts a sort of legal test about what Canada needs to do to better protect the rights of Canadians.
Yeah, very practical couple questions here is this case parts of like what you described, I assume is public, people can see that information, be able to have a sense of what's being discussed to some degree, yes?
The pleadings that have been filed are public, yes, absolutely. And the earlier Federal Court of Appeal decision and all of that, absolutely, that's public. The expert reports, I don't think they will be filed in the near future, at which point they will be public. Canada has them, but they haven't technically been filed with the court yet. So at some point in the near future, those types of documents would be available if someone was to go to the federal court registry, but they wouldn't be broadly available in the same way as the pleadings as the court decisions.
Great. Yeah, practically speaking, I'd love to include some of those links if they're available for the public to check out. How are you going to inform people about this effort from now until October? I mean, obviously, this is one way we're taking advantage of Earth Day to discuss it. But let's talk about in the next few months, what can the public expect? How can they follow? How can they get ready to be supportive on the day of the proceeding, is it?
On my end, yeah, as this is, I'm going to try and do a lot of media because I believe that a super important part of this case is not only going to trial, but also communicating what we believe to the public so they're able to be like, okay, these youth who were like super young at the start of this case are advocating for their future and also the future of all Canadians and future Canadians as well. So I think it's really important to communicate why I care about this case. And so I'm going to be doing that the best I can because I do think even if this case doesn't end up going through, that we still made valuable impact by communicating and starting conversations in that regard. And I just want to share with people that I'm 100% doing this out of love. There is some like fear that's happening for sure, but it's just because I love our world and I want to protect it, and I want to protect those future generations. And so I know there can be a lot of politicization with these issues, but I would just want people to know and communicate leading up this case and use this case as a platform to say, yeah, we're doing it because we cared, not because we want to alienate anyone else.
Yeah, thank you, Sadie. It's a responsibility piece. I think it's remarkable that you're leading that. So yes, we'll make sure that we let people know. If you're listening to this, follow Sadie, follow the West Coast Environmental Law Center. Keep track of what's going on with this in the next upcoming months. I'm really excited to see what comes next. So in October, let's plug it one more time for people. Love to have a conversation just before when to get people revved up, however they can be there, whatever that looks like, Sadie, even if it's virtual. I certainly would like to sit in on the case. If you guys can just walk through these specifics for people, what action can they do? Let's help people get involved.
As I said, a really important part of this case is starting conversations. So yeah, talking about it with people and like understanding what your stance is and like maybe what biases you have that are influencing how you may respond, because I think in this day and age, what we're losing a lot that we really need is like critical thinking skills. So I don't need you to agree with us 100%, but I want people to take a step back and analyze their thinking. And just, I also think this case is important to communicate to people like climate change isn't your fault. Like, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of companies that are trying to tell the public that, oh, climate change is happening because you put that piece of paper in the garbage, or you didn't recycle properly, or you did this and that. And for sure, everyone has like a part to play in living more sustainable, in living more in a sustainable sense. But I think the real issue is the corporations, and the governments have the ability to regulate that and change their decision making to make the climate crisis better. But we don't see that that's happening. So I also want to share that, like, we are trying to hold the right people accountable, and we don't want to blame just like the general person for these issues. So yeah, of course, like, try and eat less meat and like recycle and stuff, but also political action and like widespread social action and building community, I think, is more important than those things, but they all have a part to play.
Amazing. I have more to say, but Andrew, I've been making you wait. Please run us through what you're up to between now and then the case day itself. How can people get involved and follow along? Thank you.
West Coast Environmental Law has social media channels at WEC Law, so West WCE Law, where people can follow, and we're posting updates to on this case and amplifying the voices of the youth. We're also supported in our communications efforts by our Children's Trust, which is an international organization that has been supporting this case and similar cases around the world brought by youth. And they also have social media that are going to be talking about this case, but also if you're interested in what's being done in other countries in the US, but elsewhere as well, you can follow them. Their handle is Youth VGov. We're looking for. We've been fundraising in support of the case. RA Finley is doing this way beyond below the market rate, but there are costs associated with the case, and ideally they should be paid something for the considerable amount of work they've put into this. So donations can be made through West Coast Environmental Law to support the case. If you go to our website at wcl.org/climate-litigation, there's a donate link there and allow you to support the case directly, and the money goes entirely to the case. And I think, as Sadie said, one of the opportunities of this case are the conversations that it creates an opportunity to have. So our communications team and the people at our Children's Trust are going to be helping Sadie and others set up interviews with their local media and with national media, and trying to get the word out that this is about the climate change is a human rights issue, essentially. That that this is when we see the smoke in the sky across the country, that's not just a natural phenomenon. That's the direct result of decisions that governments and companies have been making, and of the sort of fossil fuel economy that we could have moved away from, but governments and corporations have sort of kept us hooked on. So, I think we'll be also obviously working as part of the legal team to get us into as good a position as possible for the October hearing. There's still more opportunities to be gathering evidence and figuring out how to put it best before the court. But I think the most, in terms of the public, opportunities to support directly, opportunities to amplify the social media, the interviews that Sadie and the other plaintiffs make, and opportunities to talk to friends and neighbors and family about their own anxiety, your own anxieties about climate change and the fact that your rights are being affected, helping people draw the connections between insurance premiums going up and food prices going up, and the fact that these are caused by extreme weather and climate change around the world. Summer camps having to be closed because of smoke, or these are things I didn't have to think about when I was a teen or a youth. So like helping people make that connection and understand why these youth are bringing this case, and to see themselves in the case that Sadie and the others are bringing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, underlining, this is to uphold Section 7, our rights and freedoms. This is, you don't even really have to know the science to know that if you believe in freedom, this is something that we all need to care about. This is a human rights violation. And Sadie, what you said about the climate change isn't your fault is just so critical for people to understand. What's the number that people use? It's 90 entities are responsible for 2/3 of climate damages. It's really understanding that corporations, really large corporations, oil and gas corporations are running this stalling effort to not address climate. And what you're asking for is a plan. You're asking to hold the right people accountable and to make sure that we're moving forward. So, I'm excited to see this plan. I want to see what's going to come out of this. I'm more than happy to support it. It's, obviously a very near and dear to my heart. And I think that the only way we will achieve success for this country is to uphold the rule of law, which ultimately means we have to be in the courts and we have to be trying very important things like this. I'm always frustrated when people don't appreciate the big picture, or we don't have time for the big picture, or that's too big of an idea. You guys did something very big a while ago that is now really coming into fruition at the right time. So thank you very much for knowing that. Last words from both of you. And Sadie, I'm going to lead with you because please let people know how they can follow you specifically and any of the other students perhaps in your interviews. And then, any closing thoughts you have for me. Thank you.
I don't really have a personal social media because I just like to share my voice in these interview stations, but I've wanted to create some boundaries with interacting with comments and such. But yeah, as Andrew said, following Youth VGov and all of those different social medias is going to help us share our story with you. Yeah, as I said, how we're going to fix this issue is by working together and not fighting against each other. I just really think that there needs to be collaboration and acknowledgement of different people's perspectives, even if we come from super different places. And yeah, I just want to say that I'm super, super grateful to be part of this case and work with RV Finley and Our Children's Trust and West Coast Environmental Law. It's been amazing privilege that I am so grateful to be part of. It's obviously really hard and emotionally taxing at times, but I truly believe in this case's framework and I'm willing to do all that I can to help it in court. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to our lawyers and the media team and all those wonderful people and my fellow plaintiffs as well, because yeah, we've been in it for a long time and it's really exciting to see it shape come into fruition in these next couple months. And so yeah, I'm just excited to see where this takes us.
Awesome. So I heard follow West Coast Environmental Law, follow Youth VGov to keep track of what's going on. Andrew, some final words from you, please. Thank you.
I appreciate Sadie's thanked everyone, because I was going to start by thanking her and the express such appreciation for the plaintiffs and the people who have brought the case to this stage. This is such a remarkable group of people who are the plaintiffs who have really put so much energy into this, and they remain engaged. I mean, you often as a lawyer you have clients who are like, yeah, do whatever you think. I'm just interested in the result, sort of thing. That's not these guys, kids. They're like, attending meetings. They're showing up for social media, for podcasts. They're asking questions, and we so appreciate them. I guess when I was young, people always said, "Oh, it's your generation is going to be to save the world," and now we're saying the same thing again, which on one hand is kind of depressing, but on the other hand, I mean, these kids really are. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying kids. I mean, these youth are doing something above and beyond what we can expect them to do by bringing this case. I think that the Canadians and the courts will see the passion and the commitment in there and the faith in what they're doing, that the Canadians and that our law will protect their rights. And I have to believe that's going to come through in the final result.
It's fabulous. I thank you, Sadie. Thank you to the other students that are plaintiffs, I should say. What a long thing. I've had a little experience in the legal side of things. It's not an easy thing to be a part of, so I appreciate your courage, and I am excited to see what comes out of this. Thank you very much to both of you and anybody else involved in this work. Follow this work. Know that this is vital for us to be able to move anything we talk about on this conversation forward. So thank you for appreciating that. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.